Welcome, true believer readers, to another episode of Let's Read Spider-Man. And here's a guy that has only 2 arms, my normal friend Eddie. How you doing today, Eddie?
Yes, I am completely normal, and I'm feeling very, very good today. I actually had a very good day today, so thank you for asking, James B. What about you?
I have so much going on that I'm doing all my jobs poorly.
Well, it can't be the case for Let's Read Spider-Man. You're always excellent in Let's Read Spider-Man, right?
Oh, I forgot this is one of my jobs too. Yes. Actually, Eddie, for this job, I wasn't as prepared as I wanted to be tonight either. But we have proven that we can do a live show basically as good as our regular show. I mean, we missed that.
Yeah.
I think we missed that Sam Bullitt was a DA as we did our read through live.
True.
But other than that, we did pretty good. But this issue here, issue 100, I don't think I had to prepare that much for issue 100. Why don't you start telling us about what happens in it, and we can discuss why we didn't have to prepare so much.
All right, I agree. Amazing Spider-Man 100. The Spider or the Man? We open with Spidey webbing up some average criminals. He declares he's bored and maybe grown up because he's ready to marry Gwen. He swings home and reveals he's brewed a serum to get rid of his spider powers. He takes the untested potion and falls into a restless slumber. While in a dreamlike coma, he has visions of all the tragedies he's endured. He then begins fighting villains one by one. The Vulture, the Lizard, the Green Goblin, Doc Ock, and the Kingpin all appear and are defeated.
Eddie, this felt like a filler issue, a recap issue. I was very disappointed halfway through this issue, and I actually was typing this. Like, I only read half the issue, and I put these notes down, like, this isn't very good. I don't know how you felt.
I gotta say, I completely agree. We've gotten several recaps not too long ago when Spider-Man was fighting the Beetle. It's not particularly interesting to see him not even fight in real life. It's just in his dream. So let's move on. While Spidey battles, he hears a voice of a friend that continuously calls him and feels pain in his sides. Upon defeating the Kingpin, the head of Captain Stacy appears in the sky and tells Peter that he has lived a good and decent life, using his powers for good. He awakes in a sweat, realizing his visions were from the untested potion. He peels his shirt off and is shocked to see 4 additional arms pop out of his sides.
You know, this would have been interesting if I hadn't been told, hey, in issue 100, he's going to get some extra arms. I've been waiting for this, but there was nothing else besides this, like, one reveal.
Yeah. For me, the best thing about issue 100, I did like the cover. I thought it was cool to kind of see through Spider-Man's past. But that's about it for me.
Now, if you're not interested in what happens in the What If issue, which I think you should stick around for, but if not, there'll be in the description, it will show you how you can just skip ahead a little bit to issue 101. But Eddie, our whole podcast is always under 30 minutes, so I'm not really sure how far people can skip. But we're going to talk right now about What If Volume 1. It's from February 1980. It's issue 19. It's actually titled, What If Spider-Man Stopped the Burglar Who Killed His Uncle? So this is the same story, but in this reality, Spider-Man stops the burglar basically for his own publicity. Peter hooks up with J.B. Priest to make a movie. He then heads off to the Tonight Show, where he hosts the show and promotes some products. The episode of the Tonight Show is interrupted, Eddie, by a news report to let us know John Jameson perishes in an accident. Now, in this reality, it's because Spider-Man isn't around to save him.
James B., we did another What If recently. How does this one compare to the last one?
Well, I don't know if you could tell by my voice, but I like this one a lot more.
Yeah.
I do like how the story doesn't ignore the little details still, like the John Jameson's rocket accident, but it still pushes essentially a very new narrative. I was 8 pages into this 45-page book, and I was excited about what's going to happen next, because I had no idea where this is going. Where in the previous What If we did, I knew they're just going to retell this Spider-Man story with different people getting bitten, and it was little 10-page snippets. So this was a full book, not just a story broken into thirds. What did you think about it?
I thought very similar things to you, too. I like the thought experiments of What If, and the little pieces that we get from what we read about Spider-Man, but, modified. This part where Flash and Spidey or Peter have a little interaction. And Peter says, "You'll kindly take your paw off me. I don't care for nobody's touching me." It shows his arrogance in this one. And it also shows like Peter being kind of a social pariah once again by being pretentious. So it's good stuff. Moving on, James B. Peter reveals his identity to his aunt and uncle. They try to talk Peter out of becoming a celebrity, but Spider-Man became a successful movie star. J. Jonah Jameson has Ned Leeds figure out Spider-Man's identity and publishes it in the Daily Bugle. Spider-Man threatens Jameson's life, then passes it off as a joke to get the point across not to cross him again. In the weeks that follow, Hollywood agent Spider-Man signs up the Fantastic Four, the Avengers, and the X-Men, following that up with buying Marvel Comics.
Eddie, what do you think of an agent organizing superheroes to make the money?
It's really funny. It's kind of like Spider-Man's living out his alternate dream of making tons of money. It's such a trope that goes all through Spider-Man forever. I don't have enough money. What am I going to do? And now he's like big time, and he's using his celebrity and his superpowers to gather more celebrity superheroes. So really funny. I love this sequence of events.
I actually was thinking, why isn't there an agent who's organizing superheroes in the regular Earth 616, world that the Spider-Man we know lives in? Why isn't there somebody? Yes, we see occasionally someone's like, "Hey, Spider-Man, you should make an appearance and get some money here." But there should be somebody who's like, "I'm going to market Fantastic Four posters and dolls and make these guys money, and I want to get Spider-Man in on this too." Like, it's amazing that this isn't happening at all. And I think that 1980, when someone writes this, they're like, "Yeah, we should have probably had this going on all the time." So I looked at it that way.
Well, why don't you tell us what happens next?
While feuding still with J. Jonah Jameson, Spider-Man had the Daily Globe, that's the Barney Bumpkin, if you remember, write an article
Yes.
revealing Foswell's connection to the Daily Bugle. The article costs Jameson his job, but when J. Jonah meets with Foswell, he's given the opportunity to use Foswell's organization to ruin Spider-Man at the expense of running his rackets for him. He thinks about it, but he declines. Daredevil, who starts getting involved in the story, saves Spider-Man from a sabotaged electric monster on the set of a movie. And Daredevil explains that Spider-Man has like a legit hit out on him, and he offers to stay and watch Parker's workout, thinking that he might be in danger. Soon after this workout that he's involved in, he kind of like the way that we've been talking about the crime bosses fighting people with judo and karate.
Right.
Kraven is hidden in there, and he tries to kill Spider-Man with his poison claws.
Yes. Claws him right in the back. These are another couple of great sequences. I do like how Daredevil shows up, and I like how Spider-Man, tells Daredevil we're going to make him a lot of money, or I should say Peter Parker Productions, and he puts him in this great cape, and he's like, "And this trident of all the clumsy, useless, and practical gimmick." I enjoyed it, at least Daredevil laying into his goofy costume.
Hey, this story ends with Parker meeting the writers of his next movie, and then he discovers that all the writers are wearing like masks, and they're supervillains in disguise. This part's a little bit hard to believe compared to some of the other parts, but they decided, they're attacking him, and Daredevil's there defending Peter. But in order to save Daredevil's life, Parker actually joins the fray as Spider-Man, finally fighting, because he hasn't been fighting this whole time. He's just, Hollywood agent or whatever.
Right.
And the two of them defeat the villains. He checks on the barely breathing Daredevil, and he finds the mastermind behind the attack is none other than J. Jonah Jameson, who blames Spider-Man for everything in his life gone wrong. And at that point, Spider-Man realized that he, in fact, had destroyed Jameson's life by not acting responsibly with the gifts that he had been given.
Oh, it's a beautiful ending with all sorts of great ironies. Just a really well-written book, in my opinion. Yeah, really, really fun, and to think about all these things coming together in ways that are similar, but not at all. So,
yeah, I completely agree. And speaking of things I agree with, I agree that we have a great sponsor.
Oh, yeah?
And Unless you want to talk about something else about the What If right now.
My only other one is, listeners, I would say, if you have an opportunity, just like the last What If we read, some of the costumes in this, the Peter Parker goons that he sends to go rough up J. Jonah Jameson, are absolutely hilarious. Other than the one I mentioned about Daredevil, and just kind of the illustrations in this book there's something very comical about them almost at all times. So.
They look like regular people wearing COVID-19 Spider-Man masks.
Yes, that is about right, James.
They have the webbing on their faces. And they have guns.
Yeah.
When he sends them, they're like, Jameson's like, there must be some mistake. And they're like, no mistake, Jameson. You're the one we want. And he's like, no, please. If you want a free subscription to the Bugle, 2 subscriptions to the Globe, maybe. So, and then, he's sweating it out when he comes Spider-Man. But,
oh my.
Eddie, I have a great new sponsor for you.
Okay, I'm ready.
Eddie, do you ever wish you could play like a violin or a viola or a cello?
I already can, James B. But go on.
Yes, but now, Eddie, with the new Spider or the Man potion, you can play all 3 at once. That's right. We got a hold of a special formula that will help you grow 4 extra arms. Texting and eating while driving, that used to be illegal, but now you can do it with 3 hands still on the wheel. Writing a great American novel, cooking pancakes on Pancake Day, and picking your nose? Eddie, you can do it with 2 hands to spare. Finally, Eddie, you can hold your dog and both kids, taking them to work, and still have hands free to do your job. Your kids and your dog can be with you all the time, Eddie. It won't be a problem. This Spider or the Man potion is great, Eddie. Listen, you can check it out online, or you can see their ad in Miniature Donkey Talk magazine. You can use code MENTALCASE and save 5%. And Eddie, children and superheroes get the first dose for free. So Eddie, are you ready to be more productive?
I love the sponsor's appeal to my my day job of teaching orchestra. Children, look at my lower right arms. The bowing pattern is what I want you to follow. But Peter struggles to move his own arms, and I think about Doc Ock a lot. I don't think my brain's big enough for any additional limbs. I'm not ready for this, James B. It would blow my mind.
You could have your own little orchestra. You could have a violin, a viola, and a cello, Eddie. Seriously.
There's no way I could play multiple parts. I could barely do one part oftentimes. So there's just no. I appreciate the effort of this sponsor and the idea, but from a practical point of view, other than genetically altering my body, I'm gonna pass.
Well, I hope your Pancake Day was well with you just using one hand to flip and one hand to hold the plate, but nothing else I can do. Speaking of people with 6 arms who like having 6 arms, well, actually, I'm not really sure Peter likes his 6 arms. Why don't we talk about what happens in issue 101, Eddie?
All right, yes, this boring biped. I'll help you out here. Amazing Spider-Man 101, a monster called Morbius. Spider-Man needs a hideout until he solves his excess member problem. That's a quote from him in this book too, James B, that I enjoyed. He tells Gwen and Joe Robbie he'll be out of town for a while and calls his buddy Dr. Connors. The good doctor sends him to his mansion on Long Island. Once at the mansion, Spidey uses the basement lab to attempt to create an antidote for his arms. On a boat a mile off Long Island, we are introduced to a new deathly villain, Morbius. Morbius uses his vampire-like powers to suck the blood from all the crew members and swims to shore. James, do you want to give us a rundown about Morbius? Maybe his powers? What he's kind of looks like or something?
So I know who Morbius is, and I'm aware he's a vampire, and I've seen him on the cover of different books, but this was the first time I really remember reading much about him, and it was kind of vague, Eddie. And being honest with you, in 101, I wasn't really sure what this guy could do. I wasn't sure if he was going to drain the blood from these people, or if he was strong, or if he had a problem with the daylight. I didn't have any idea. Was it clear to you what this guy could do?
It was pretty interesting. There's only a few panels that really reveal kind of things about Morbius. When the crew is going to catch him in the hold, they yell, "He moves like a blasted streak of lightning." And Morbius mocks them for being so, simple compared to his, I guess, ultimate powers.
I believe, Eddie, he actually says something like, if they only knew right now how slow I'm moving.
Yeah, so he says that, and then he also says, how leaden my limbs, but when it gets dark. So it's clear that his powers do not work well during the daylight. Leads us to think of him as a vampire, and I'll mention his face is very skeletal, and it scares me.
He's sometimes very, very white. He definitely wants to be somewhere in the dark, because when he washes up near Dr. Connor's mansion, which is conveniently the place that Peter's going to, he decides to roost for the day in the widow's peak on the top of the house. He's got that whole I'm going to hang upside down like a vampire bat type thing. The next night, Morbius wakes up to find Spider-Man, and Morbius attacks him. He clocks Spidey hard enough to knock him out, and just as he's going to feed, Dr. Connors shows up. Morbius attempts to attack Dr. Connors, but Connors evades him, but the stress turns him into the lizard. And at the end, Spider-Man awakens to see the two preparing to fight. Eddie, the lizard's lines are like, you're not going to touch Spider-Man. He's mine to destroy.
Yeah, that's right. I like Spider-Man. Oh, no! Poor Spider-Man at the end of this comic. He's he's so confused. He has to be just so confused. He's got extra arms. He's been up all night for 2 days. He gets attacked by this weird, freaky vampire dude, and then he gets knocked out, only to wake up to see the lizard. It's really rough for Spidey.
So somewhere in the middle of the book, there's a full-page panel of Morbius punching six-armed Spider-Man, and he says, his name. He's like, Morbius! It's a full panel. This looks so different than the Drug issues or Bullet. It's like we have a completely different art team, but it feels like a new story, and I enjoy that.
I guess I should say both 101 and 100 are really introspective. That I know has occurred before when Spider-Man's been moving around. He talks to himself. He thinks, thought bubbles and things like that. But this is a lot of talking to yourself.
Sure. The fact that 100 is him by himself the entire issue.
Right.
There's no choice.
Yeah. We talked about the Comic Code Authority, and we talked about how they distinctly did not want vampires in comics, and we got a vampire in this comic. What do you think? What do you think happened here?
I think after the Drug issues went well, Stan decided on writing vampires, and the Comics Code Authority said, "We're the board of if they want a job, right?"
Right.
Yeah.
They're losing authority constantly here because Stan's just constantly pushing the limits. So
if they don't approve the vampires, then he'll just keep he'll put worse stuff in.
Right.
Right. You can just be like, I can do whatever I want. Put decapitations in if I want. And you can't stop me at that point because no one cares what your stupid Comics Code Authority thinks.
I think too, speaking of vampires, this issue is downright scary to me. I don't know how many people Morbius kills, but it's an entire crew on a boat. It's a different feel for sure.
I think I disagree a little bit. I think it was purposely written kind of vague. And I think because it didn't really affect me the same way. He's punching people, and again, no page numbers, I apologize. And they're like, stop him, he's getting away. They're talking about how fast he moves, It's implied that he kills them, but it doesn't show him biting any of them. It doesn't show him attacking any of them besides a few punches. The scariest one might be he grabs one guy by the top of the head with his hand. You always sees his hand, but that's why the Comics Code Authority can still approve it. He's not really doing anything.
Oh, interesting. And here, I guess, reveals big problems with my childhood. The mystery is always the scariest part for me. If he just killed them overtly, I'd be like, oh man. But it's that mystery that really drives me crazy.
Also reminds me, I'm not trying to be funny here. I know we are funny sometimes. He reminds me more of the Grinch, though, as far as scariness. He's got that
interesting.
He's got a cartoony creepy smile to him more than a scary one to me. I guess you and I see this Morbius a little differently. I kind of see him as I don't see him as a scary vampire as the way you do, but that's good. That's what makes it different. He
scares me.
Yeah. You get scared. You don't want to deal with having extra arms and be more productive. Everyone's got their own, different strokes, different folks, you know.
All right, James B, you got to cut me a little slack here. I got to give you a quick rundown of all the dated references in this book. Are you ready? I'm going to be fast.
Sure, go ahead.
Starting from the first one that I could find, there are references to Kafka, Ed Sullivan, The Vice Squad, Sergeant O'Malley, David Fry, Spiro Agnew, Creature Features, Frankenstein, John Carradine, House of Dracula, Tony Perkins, and Alfred Hitchcock. I mean, there's like 4 pages of Spider-Man rambling off these different things, dated references that are from this era. I enjoyed it, but I thought it was a little excessive. No?
You did a great job. We don't even have to hire an intern for our show because you're out there capturing all those things. So,
well, I don't know how much it added to the book other than I liked thinking about all these things that Spider-Man is making pop references to.
Let's just do a wrap up of 100 and 101 and a wrap up of the What If, and then we can wrap up this whole podcast. What do you say?
Sounds great.
Okay. Here's what I read. Spider-Man wants to get rid of his powers because he wants to be like a regular person with Gwen. You agree?
Yes, but I'm annoyed by
But that's
this.
the reason. That's what we're supposed to get out of this, right?
Yes.
Meanwhile,
Right.
Stan Lee has created a vampire because he finally can.
Yes.
Okay. And he decides to give Spider-Man extra arms for what reason? Can you help me on that one?
I think it's part of this like kind of pushing the limits, freaky.
I agree.
Aspect of
I
Spider-Man.
think he wanted to make him a monster at one point, and he's like, now I can do it. We'll do it at the same time. I get the vampire. They're going to reject them both or either one. Okay. He's had this idea for a long time probably, and boom.
Yep.
I don't think anything else happens. Yes, I know that Doc Connors shows up from Florida and turns into the Lizard, but that's not really moving the story. I think that this is basically Stan pushing the limit, and at the same time, the storyline is, hey, he wants to not have his powers. So that's all that really happened in these 2 issues. I know that 102 is a double-size issue, Eddie.
It's huge.
25 cents on the cover. It's a double.
Oh boy.
Yeah. How about the... what do you think we're supposed to get out of reading that What If? Anything? Do you think we're supposed to learn something?
As stated before, I love these thought experiments. I think we should take how much we appreciate the Spider-Man books that we've already read, because they are a great story, and it's very clear that they could have gone dramatically different than what they went. But I really loved them. Particularly those early books I thought were just really fantastic. So I'm super happy that Stan didn't decide to make Spider-Man a TV personality for a while, or not as much of a superhero.
I don't know why Spider-Man would choose that direction, though. Like I said, anybody could sort of be an agent to the heroes. Like if you're a professional athlete, like a football player or a soccer player, the agents don't have to also be football players that are representing you. They can just be regular people.
I think we've seen that he's nearly a villain. Very little stopped him from being a villain. And I think he's highly motivated by money. We've definitely seen that so often. And in this book, he's filthy rich. He's got this great bed with a giant spider over top of it in his mansion in Los Angeles. So
he's also big into fame. It shows him with the women, coming up there and stuff. So he's
some more great outfits to look at, everyone too, in those panels.
I didn't care that much for the drawing. I know it's a little comical at some point.
Yes, absolutely.
It could be the artist, or it could be intentional, but it's a little too, I know we're talking about comic books here, but I just don't know. I really enjoyed the What If, but I just don't know exactly what the purpose was, the same way that I actually understood maybe what was happening in 100 and 101. I wasn't sure why like you said, he's interested in money. Okay, but it wasn't as clear to me why he was so mean about it and stuff like that as well. Mm-hmm. So, but I still enjoyed it a lot. So you want to get back together and do 102 next time?
I'm ready. Next time, 102.
Okay. Eddie, why don't you tell people how they can find us?
You can email us at letsreadspiderman@gmail.com. Or you can find us at Twitter at letsreadspidey. Or you can message us on Twitter.
And remember, listeners, if you want to just try your hand at scraping together some kind of vampire monster, they'll probably make a movie about him one day. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Did you see how Doc Connors found out like that it was Spider-Man that called him and said, "Hey, I need your help building"? Like, so he calls Doc Connors and he's like, "Hey, I need a place to build to work on a serum." And Doc Connors is like, "How do I know you're Doc? How do I know you're Spider-Man?" Remember what he says?
Oh yeah, he's like, "I know you're the lizard."
He's like,
poor Doc.
And he's like,
Connors.
"The key's under the mat."
He just hits him with like a ton of bricks.
I'll be there. Oh, I'm on the next flight. No, he didn't tell us that part, of course, but
No, but yeah, he does have yellow eyes. Which remember, that one time we saw the lizard with the one green and the one yellow eye. I like that.
I think I cut that out of the podcast because you were wrong. And I was like, this doesn't make any sense what you're talking about.
I think it makes sense. One green, one yellow eye.
No, it didn't. It doesn't have one green, one yellow eye. It was just your view.
The two sides.
It doesn't make
the sides.
It wasn't true though. It's like when you make statements that aren't true on the podcast, I don't put them in there. I cut those things out. I might have not put in the podcast the conversation with Joe Robbie, where I'm trying to convince you that Joe Robbie is going to be important, because I'm just like,
I don't think you did because it was terrible.
I'm like, all right.
I'm like, oh yeah, I don't know who that guy is.
Yeah, I can't make fun of you so badly that people think, why is this guy doing the podcast? That's a problem.
Yeah, that I agree. That's beyond what should be aired, and I'm usually fine with my mistakes. But particularly since I'm such a huge Joe Robbie fan now.
Right.
I love that guy. He's great.